In the quiet suburbs of Maplewood, nestled among rows of modest homes, Daniel found himself living a life he'd once considered perfect. His marriage to Mara had been, in his eyes, the fulfillment of his dreams, until one autumn evening shattered that illusion. Mara stood at the kitchen counter, her fingers absent-mindedly twisting the simple silver band. On her left hand, the light from above casting a soft glow on it. Daniel sat across from her, his hands folded tightly in his lap, knuckles white as he processed her words. "I don't know why you're making such a big deal out of this, Daniel," she said, exasperating, lacing her tone. Her words, though calm, fell sharp. "It's not like I'm asking for a divorce. I want more." She spoke as if her confession was no more significant than an everyday decision. Her words floated between them in the stillness of the kitchen, twisting the air. Daniel's gaze never left her face, his usual warm expression now replaced by a steely silence. His thoughts churned, memories of promises, shared dreams, and sacrifices surfacing one by one. Mara's tone softened, almost as if trying to make light of the situation. "Look, it's not that I don't love you, Daniel. I do," she said with a gentle smile that was anything but reassuring. "But I'm seeing someone else. And it doesn't have to mean anything, right? I thought you'd understand." For a moment, Daniel thought he hadn't heard her right. But her gaze never wavered. She waited for his acceptance, just as she'd always expected. Daniel had been so steady, so reliable, so convenient. For years, he'd placed her needs, her dreams, above his own. And now, it seemed, she believed he'd let this pass too. Just another whim in her journey of self-discovery. "You'll get over it," Mara concluded, as if granting permission for his acceptance. "I need you to accept it." Daniel remained silent. Inside, his heart ached, but outwardly, he was impenetrable, his mouth set in a tight line. His silence seemed to unsettle her, a faint frown creasing her brow. He finally looked at her, his voice calm but unyielding. "Just go." The two words, spoken with a quiet finality, left Mara momentarily speechless. But only for a second. She quickly smoothed her expression, a smile flitting across her lips. "I knew you'd come to your senses," she said, glancing at her watch. "I have to go errands. Waiting for me." Her heels clicked as she walked toward the door. "We can discuss it later if you want, but I'm glad you took it so maturely." Daniel didn't respond. Instead, he watched as she gathered her things and, with a quick smile, slipped out the door, her footsteps echoing down the stairs, growing fainter until they dissolved into the night. In the silence that followed, Daniel sat alone, feeling the weight of what had just transpired. Once the stillness settled in, Daniel stood up and moved deliberately through the home that had once been a sanctuary. He climbed the stairs to their bedroom, a place filled with mementos of their life together. Framed photos lined the walls, each a snapshot of happier times. Their wedding, a sun-drenched vacation, holiday gatherings, laughter frozen in each frame. Without a word, he walked to the closet and reached for an old suitcase, one that had been tucked away since their honeymoon. He packed with precision, selecting only what he needed. Clothes, a laptop, essential documents, nothing more. He glanced at her side of the closet, noting the cherished wedding dress Mara had inherited from her grandmother. He left it untouched, along with everything else that mattered to her. Once he'd packed, Daniel walked through the house, feeling the weight of each memory. He made his way back to the kitchen, his hands steady as he prepared for what came next. The knowledge his father had passed down about electrical systems would come in handy. Tonight, with a few precise movements, he set his plan in motion, ensuring that what happened next would look like nothing more than a tragic accident. Minutes later, Daniel stood on the sidewalk, the night air cool against his skin. He watched the flames dance, the orange glow illuminating his face as the fire swallowed the life they'd built together. His heart ached, but he allowed himself only a moment to feel it. The fire blazed, consuming every last vestige of their shared life, leaving behind nothing but ashes and silence. For the first time, he felt the weight of Mara's betrayal lift, as if the flames themselves had carried away the remnants of his pain. The house was no longer a symbol of lost dreams, but rather of release, a freedom Mara had unwittingly given him. In the days that followed, Mara discovered what had happened. With nowhere to turn, she went to Aaron, the man for whom she'd been willing to throw away everything. But Aaron had his own complications, namely his wife, Sophia, who was anything but forgiving. When Mara arrived at Aaron's doorstep, she found herself facing a locked door and a reality that looked far different from the fantasy she'd envisioned. For Mara, the future looked uncertain, her choices leaving her isolated and adrift. She had sought freedom, and now she had it, but it was a hollow freedom, marked by the absence of both love and home. As for Daniel, he found himself unshackled from the past, free to forge a new path. Unburdened by betrayal, his days became filled with the quiet satisfaction of building something new, this time a life that was entirely his own. Looking back, he would occasionally think of that autumn night, the flames and the silence that followed. He would remember Mara and her careless smile as she left. But each memory was met with a steady resolve, a newfound strength that had grown in the wake of his heartbreak. And so, Daniel walked forward, his story no longer about loss, but about the resilience that rises from the ashes.